Hey guys, doing this video on website conversion optimization. We are going to cover some ways to take the existing traffic you're getting to your website, whether it's through Google Ads or through anywhere else, and how do we turn that into customers and bookings a little bit more often. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to take a slightly different approach than the ones you may have heard before, which is usually around web design. I think that's great. I also think that there's value for that, but it's also a little bit harder to sometimes implement. But we will talk about certain things with the web design and page layout, but I think I wanted to take a slightly different approach, a slightly different angle in case this is something that people haven't heard before. And you can find a million resources and of course, differing opinions on website conversion optimization from a design perspective. So I'm gonna jump right in and we're gonna cover 5 areas that I think will be beneficial to you to be aware of, pay attention to. The last one's a little bit more of a nerdy sort of tools / optimization for like testing. So we'll talk about that one, but if you're not techie, that's one that maybe you hand off to somebody who is, or maybe you just, pay attention so you're aware of the options, what you can find out. Not super hard to implement, but definitely a little more on the nerdy side, like me. So we're gonna talk about some CRO best practices to keep your process, not just website, but process fast, simple, and we wanna pre-sell people. That's a lot more to do with the landing page and the website. So one of the couple of things we want to talk about is load time must be fast. Okay, we want to make sure that your website loads quickly because people are not going to stick around to wait for it to load, especially like images, things like that. You can lose a lot of conversions. People will not wait. So that's one of the first things on the list. We're going to talk about your mobile site, making sure it's optimized for users, both with the elements on the page and the ordering of those elements. We're going to talk about, does your website explain or pre-sell your experience? We recommend using video whenever possible, wherever possible. We're going to talk about some speed to lead enhancements. This is ways you can use like chat or auto follow-ups with that chat. You can text people who miscalled you, things like that. We're going to talk about these other tools I mentioned were kind of nerdy, but that's just for session recording, which is probably the least nerdy. And then split testing actual elements on the page, that's the most nerdy, okay? So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Let me just switch the page here. Whoops, I'm jumping ahead. So let's talk about load time. So what we want is to make sure that your website loads quickly, because slow websites basically just cost you bookings and it's just a poor experience for anybody on your website. So you don't want to have a website that loads really, really slow. How you can test it, you can use websites like Page Speed Insights. This is from Google, and you just Google it right here. You just have to put a screenshot of it. There's other tools like GT Metrics, there's Pingdom. Doesn't matter what tool you use. The whole point is to just check the load time of your website. Some of these tools will tell you what you can change and what can be done. Now that's a little bit more nerd level. Some of the things that are the most popular are image sizes and having images compressed. There's tools that will help you compress images on your website. What happens is that way you don't have it loading really slow. If you're using like WordPress, there's some caching plugins. Cache just means that it basically takes a snapshot of your web page. That way browsers can serve it up a lot faster than they would if basically wait for every element to load all the time. So that's a few of the options there. This is a lot more technical. Everybody will be in a different boat, but I recommend using these tools if you go to your website, and I definitely would recommend doing it incognito. If you do it from a browser, you're constantly visiting your website, it's gonna be cached and it's also gonna most likely load a lot quicker than it would for the average user who's never been to your site before. So when you're doing these kinds of things, you're looking at your website, use incognito or use a private browser. Use it on your phone and use it on your desktop, because mobile and desktop will load at different speeds and there could be different issues for what could be the problem on each device. So just keep that in mind. I'm not gonna spend any more time on this one. Just you gotta have a fast website, or as fast as reasonably possible. Can't make it perfect, but do the best that you can. We're gonna talk about the mobile website. We're gonna jump into an example here in just a minute. We wanna make sure is that the page doesn't switch on you. We want to make sure that key elements are visible on mobile, and we want to make sure that they're in the correct order for users, okay? Basically, we want to make sure that you visit your website, do it on a mobile, on a phone, on a tablet, just do it on different devices, in the kind of the tall version, look at it sideways, things like that, just to make sure you know how your website's appearing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pause this really quick and jump into a website template that I think is really great for travel, but there's a couple of things I want you to be aware of that maybe wouldn't be obvious to the average person. So give me 1 second. Okay guys, so I am on a demo version of the travel tour web template, WordPress template. This is one that's very popular in the group, very popular in general, and I think it's a great template. A couple of things I want you to be aware of when we're talking about the mobile website. So sometimes the way a desktop website looks is great and it functions well, but the mobile version doesn't always get as much love and attention. And that's just because people buy websites generally on a desktop. And people look at how the website looks generally on a desktop. So this is something that I find very often, is that even people with really good websites on desktop, they're not always set up the best on mobile. So here's an example. We're looking at this particular demo version of this theme. Right up here, you can see your phone number and your email. I'm not a big fan of having an email in a header like this in general. I like to go through a form, but whatever. But a phone number is pretty important. Maybe people are going to want to call you to ask questions, to get to know what's going on, whatever, right? So on desktop, that's obviously a lot more prominent. Maybe not the best, but whatever. When I just right click and go to inspect, you're going to see that's going to give me my mobile kind of emulator, if you want to call it that. And look, what happened to my phone number? Where'd it go? Where's my email address? It's completely gone. You can't find it, right? And so this is just one example of where things on desktop might seem like, yeah, well, I have a phone number at the top, but when you go to mobile, which is where a lot of our traffic is, depending on what kind of experience you offer, and if they're in destination booking or they're doing it far out, that's the big factor here. But generally speaking, you want to make sure the important elements on your page exist on both mobile and desktop. The next thing is the ordering and even the layout of certain things. So again, this is slightly designed. This is probably the most design we'll get. But when we get to a page like this, we have a good headline, which is great. We have a learn more button. Maybe that could be a book now button, whatever. That's fine. And we have a nice image in the background. We got some icons that look pretty nice in this layout. A search functionality, and then we have our tour packages. This is where we really want people's eyes to go, in my opinion, after seeing the form or maybe some of these images. But when I go, again, on mobile, and I don't see a phone number, okay, I scroll down. Now I see these 4 icons, but they're stacked. Like, why not have a 2-column, right? Just to save, it would cut the height of this section in half, right? This is just an example of where you can get through and optimize slightly some of this to make the user experience a little bit better. Then we have our search functionality. Is that necessary at this point? Could that be truncated? And then we finally get to our popular packages. Again, the same order as the desktop site. But again, we're kind of like taking up a lot of extra space to get them to the part that we want to see more often. And here I see the popular tour packages. I don't have the scroll or the slider in this case. So that's not so great. And then we'll just go to one quick page. Let's just say we went to our tour page. I'll just go to this one. Here we are. And then again, so I see a lot of good information. I see there's a headline for what this experience is, a background image, then I get to a form that basically allows me to try to book. I got some key information, right? So this is how it looks on desktop, no issue. Hit inspect on here. We have our headline, we have our image, that's great. Puts us right to the form first. But we really don't know what we're looking at yet, right? All the information that we just saw, which is on the left, is now all the way down here, right? So now we have to get past basically the form, which again, maybe we're not ready to book at that moment. Why not give people a chance to see the information first, like the why book with us? Maybe the questions could also be there. That's, questionable. But I would definitely have the tour details a little bit higher in this section. So again, this is personal taste. This is my personal opinion of this, of course. This is where you have the nerdy tools. You can split test it. But generally speaking, think about the order people are making a decision. When they get to this page, they don't know anything about your experience yet. There's not even any details. The next thing we ask them to do is book or inquire. Well, why would they do that? They don't know anything about it yet. Well, let's give them a little more information about us. Let's give them a little more information about the experience. Then send them to maybe a booking section, and then maybe ask them if they have any questions, right? So reordering the way this page is laid out, in my mind, I think would make more sense for the average user. Now that could be debated, whatever, I'm not gonna debate it. That's my opinion. So that's how I think as far as mobile goes. Do we have the elements on the page that we want there that are important? And are they in the order that we think make the most sense? That's just a quick example of that. So the next thing we want to talk about are your pages and basically the website. And I guess I could have worded this better, but does it explain or pre-sell your experience? We want to talk about is having a descriptive and maybe even an emotive headline and subtext. What does that mean? That means instead of just saying, 7-day island tour, maybe it's a 7-day adventure island tour, and then below it, leave the island feeling refreshed, relaxed, and feeling like $1 million, right? That would be a way to work some emotions. Not great copy, but the idea is a headline that's descriptive of what it is, and then maybe a subhead of helping frame the experience that you're talking about. That's one way you can do that with the headline and some subtext. Of course, that can carry on to your booking blurb in Fair Harbor, wherever else you have your booking details, or further in other places on the page. It could be in bullets as well. I've seen where people try to use a lot of words to describe something. I think that's great for SEO. I think that's great for people who read. But the general vast majority of people are going to see things and experience them visually. And video is the best way to do it. Use video wherever possible, or at least use really good imagery. When you're going to be taking somebody somewhere, or they're going to be going with you on an experience, help them to see what it's like. Like, what does a person in my position on this experience see? What do they do? Who do they meet? How does it look? Are they smiling, right? Seeing that is just, it's worth a million words anyway. Basically, video is going to help. Great imagery could be the second best, right? Maybe you can take great images, make a slideshow video out of them. That's better than nothing. But great images that, again, show the experience from the user's perspective. But if you're a guided tour, some information about the guide. Who's this person that's taking me around? Or maybe it's more than one guide. So you've got, here's who our guides are. Here's how they are. That could be a subset of this information, right? Maybe a group photo. Maybe it's a dedicated video about that. I'm just saying that you want to be able to have a person watch a 1 or 2 minute video and really get the feeling that I understand what I'm going to get with this experience, with this company, right? That's really what you want them to walk away from it with, and make it fun. And again, make it emotive, good music, maybe some good, opening and closing. Doesn't have to be high value production. Just needs to be a point across about what you're offering them for your experience. So a couple other things you want to talk about is social proof and trust factors. Do you have reviews on your page? Do you have ratings for your tours? Do you have the OTA badges, like, TripAdvisor award badges, or just even the fact that part of the travel association in your market, things like that, where people can feel like, okay, this is not a fly-by-night person that's going to kidnap me when I go for their tour, or something crazy. Because depending on where you're located, people might have those fears. And also trust factors could be stating if you're in a place where, again, it's kind of sketchy, that your tours are created to take them to the safest place with experienced people, with Navy SEAL training or whatever it is. Like, use that kind of information to give people that trust, social proof, and of course emotive. Very emotive when you say something like that. Okay, we're going to talk about next, speed to lead. So this is where we're talking about software. Speed to lead enhancement. So what does that really mean? That means when people inquire or they reach out to you, do you have some way to get on the horn with them really quickly, to respond to them quickly, or to answer questions quickly? Do you have a way to do that? I don't have the stat handy right now, but there's a stat that I think the Harvard Business Group did a while back that said if you don't respond to your leads in 5 minutes, your chances of connecting with them and closing them is like 900% higher. It's ridiculous. So the point is, do you have something in place to be able to do that? If you're a single solo operator that is also doing the tour or doing the experience or handling things, and you're missing phone calls and people are messaging you on Messenger or on Instagram and you're not able to get to them quickly, you're losing money. I mean, that's just the way it is. You're losing money, right? And it's also not a great experience for the person that is trying to reach you. So it could even be a person who already booked that needs to change their booking, or has something else that came up and you're not responding to them quickly. Just a bad experience. So here's some things you could consider doing that I'm not going to say you have to do, but they're very helpful. So having a chat feature on your website with maybe an auto reply. What does that look like? So I'm going to just say right now, we have a solution for this called Conversion Assist. It's at this website. I'm not saying you have to go there, but these are a couple of things that we try to address specifically with one software. You don't have to have like 5 or 6 of them. And these are the things that I think are the most valuable. So the chat feature, we do it with SMS. There's other systems you can use. You can spend a lot of money on Podium if you want. I think there's a few others out there that could also have this feature available, but we want to be able to get somebody who can, maybe they don't want to call you because they're on vacation. They're busy. They just would rather start a chat with you. Because it's SMS based, they don't have to stay on your website. If you are using a system that has an auto reply feature like ours, that means when somebody sends in a message, you can instantly reply within a few seconds. With that, hey, I'm on a tour right now. If you don't mind giving me 30 minutes, I'll get to whatever question you have answered. Just give me some time, I'll get right back to you. At least you're then responding to the person. You can also do something where you're able to automatically just still send them a message like, how can I help you today? Or I'll be right there, and then you just respond naturally. But it builds in that 5-minute response time into a system that works well. You can also look at missed calls to SMS. Basically, when you miss a phone call, let's say you're in the middle of guiding a tour or handling customer service, or you're on the other line for that matter. If somebody calls you and you miss them, you can have an automatic text go out and say, hey, we just missed your call. I really apologize for that. How can we help? And now you just turn that back into a SMS conversation. Why is that valuable? It's valuable because if you've got multiple people on your team, anybody on the team could respond to that person, or you could be chatting, not recommending this, you could be talking on the phone and maybe chatting at the same time with this person who just sent you an SMS. At least enough to say, hey, we just missed you, how can I help? And when they say, hey, I need to book a tour, sure, give me 5 minutes, I'll call you right back. I'm just wrapping up this customer. Something to that effect. Syncing messages. So this is basically having a unified place to get a lot of your communications. I don't know if you've seen this happen, but if you've got messages coming in from WhatsApp and Instagram and Messenger, and then you've got people calling you, some people emailing you, things like that, having all these different inboxes and all these different apps on your phone can be super annoying and very hard to manage, because you don't always know, like maybe you don't hear a notification, you look at it later on, like, oh crap, I missed that person on Instagram direct messaging. So having one place to have all this stuff flow into one inbox, or at least one way to get notifications to a person who can watch them constantly, is really good, because if you are getting people from these channels, missing them is not helping you. You're basically losing money. If this doesn't really apply to you because you're not really getting a lot of messages that way, well, then that's probably just fine. But you definitely want to make sure that if you are getting messages and you are getting people reaching out from all over the place, simplify it and sync it either into one inbox or to one notification stream, or one person or a group of people can actually see those notifications, reply to them very easily. Lastly, we're going to talk about templating out or automating responses to questions. So this can be done in a few different ways. If you're using a chat feature, this can be done when somebody uses the word parking, then we automatically say, hey, if you're asking about parking, here's where you can go. Where they can basically just get an answer to their question without any human intervention. You could also try to make this to where your website answers these questions, which goes back to our last section about having important information on the page where people might be booking. But this could also be after the booking. They've already booked with you, but they forgot, because of course people never check their email. So when they're on vacation, they're almost never checking their email to know where they're supposed to meet you, or these really important questions. So having some of these responses automated will save you time, save them time, and then at the very least templating them out. And whether you do that again in a system like Conversion Assist, or you do that in Podium, or you do that wherever the heck else you want, or just copy and paste, that's going to save you having to type out the same answers over and over and over again. So again, this last one could help with conversion optimization, but could also help with the customer experience if they've already booked with you, because then they're not going to wait 20 or 30 minutes to get an answer, causing stress because they don't know where to meet you and they're already running late, or whatever it is. So just consider that. Okay, and then we'll talk lastly about some tools to help you see opportunity. This is going to be really short, but there's some things you can do which are really handy, really help you to know what's going on your website and what you can do to change things. So session recording, if you're not familiar with that is, that's when basically people come to your website, you can see a recording of what they do there. It basically looks at where they click, where they scroll. It shows you heat maps of the pages, how they navigate. It doesn't show you personal information if they fill in a form or anything, but it can be really, really helpful. So we just started using Clarity from Microsoft. It's a free tool. It just came out, well, as of this video, I think earlier this year. So right now, and I would imagine for a while, it'll be free. It's basically similar to like Hotjar or Mouseflow or any of these other tools, Crazy Egg, there's all these weird names, I know, with animals and food. But Clarity Microsoft is actually pretty decent. this is the website you can visit. I'll just pull it up on my screen real quick. Okay, so here you go right here. See what your users want with Clarity. That's pretty cool little way to tie it together, but you can get an idea of what people are doing. This might look advanced, but really it's like, hey, look, are people actually clicking on that thing that I think is so important? Oh, they never do. Or hey, they're trying to click on this thing. It doesn't open up. It doesn't click anywhere. Like things like that. So it gives you some insight, and it's free forever, it says. So you don't have to worry about paying for it. I'm getting a little bit more used to this. So we didn't use this in the past. We used another tool, but it does the same thing, and it's GDPR and it's CCPA ready. So that's cool. We'll move on to the next one. I'm just gonna whop open this thing without pausing. So we've got Google Optimize. It's another tool that Google offers for split testing website changes. So Google Optimize is basically a place where you can change things on your site, like let's say the headline. You want it to be, let's say you have two different versions of a headline. You want 50% of the people to see this one, 50% to see that one, and you want to know which one wins without having to guess. Well, you can do that in Google Optimize. Google Optimize is part of the Google marketing platform. It links your Google Analytics account, and that's where you're able to set up these tests. It could also be for users who have been to the website before. There's a lot of different segments, like basically personalization. I mean, there's a ton you can do with it. Really, your imagination is really the only limit there. You can change the colors of things, add elements to the page that aren't there on certain versions, change the format of certain things. Again, this is where you have to be a little more experienced. I mean, I don't think you have to be a total developer to do this. As you can see, there's no coding required, but you got to have some idea on HTML, I think, to some degree, unless you're just changing testing headlines, and that's different, or swapping out images, and that's different. That's pretty basic. But if you want to get more advanced, you can, like your layout and things like that. Again, this is also free. I do recommend it. That's something else you can look into. And then we're going to talk lastly about call recording. So for call recording, this is really beneficial. You might say, what's the big deal about call recording? Well, if you're talking about conversion rate optimization, sometimes you'll find, I hate to say this, but sometimes you'll find that the reason people are not booking is because of your staff or because of you, like to be completely frank. Maybe you're not handling those calls very well. And it's very amazing how, if you record your calls and then you listen to them after, even if you were the person that had the call, when you listen to yourself, you're like, first of all, nobody likes to hear their own voice. It's really annoying and everybody thinks it's weird. But once you get past that, you realize, man, I was kind of a jerk on that call. Or maybe I should have said this, but I didn't say that, right? It's called watching your own play tape or whatever they call it in football. I'm not a big football fan, but watching your own tape, basically, seeing how you did. So this could be super valuable when you have staff, because sometimes people are just impatient. Or they answer the phone like they just got out of bed, or they don't really care. That is not the kind of experience you want. And if that is the way people are going to perceive you on the first impression, they're not going to expect anything else on the back end, so it could cost you bookings. So again, you could use things like Grasshopper. We've used CallRail, and of course, Conversion Assist, our system, also has this built in. So of course, my favorite, but regardless of that, you can use any one of these. And there's also other options for call recording and call attribution, which is for your marketing. So I think it's really important to have a plan for this. So if you're going to use call recording, I would let the company know that you're going to do it, like your staff. Number one is sometimes that prevents issues right there, because they think, oh crap, this person's going to hear me talk. I better be nice. I've seen that happen time and time again, where just the awareness of being recorded gets people to straighten up a bit. And then listen to them maybe once a week. Maybe look at the calls, because a lot of these you can look at, with certain durations. You can look at just first-time callers on certain pages on your website. Depending on how you have this set up, depends what option you're using. But I do think it could be very valuable to actually see what's happening, the interaction between your potential bookings or your potential customers and you or your staff, and make sure that you're not losing them or losing that sale after you've engaged with them. Because at that point, you've already paid for them. You've already acquired them as a person. So the most profitable thing you could do is make sure more of those people turn into bookings more often. And again, you might not find that people are doing things wrong. You just might find, we never talk about this really great benefit when people answer the phone. Why? Because maybe you're unprepared. You don't have a script. I'm not saying you need a script, but it's good to have some kind of a flow for a conversation. And this might reveal where you can tweak things and change your messaging. Also hear what the frequent questions are. They might be changing over time, especially now that COVID's over, hopefully over. We're probably going to see different questions for different things. So this will help you stay in front of that if you're not the person answering the phone all the time. So that's the last step. That's the last thing we have in our list. Hope this was helpful and valuable. I know it's a little bit different than you probably heard before. I know it was a long video, but it is what it is. Hope it was valuable, and thanks for watching. Take care. God bless.